Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going on a quest. Kind of. It's Europe's quest for a sustainable future.
A quest, huh? I like it.
Yeah, and it's a story full of twists and turns, really. So we're diving into Europe's shift from, well, a past that was really built on diesel to a future that's powered by emissions-free solutions, all these new technologies.
Yeah.
Our guides on this journey, a really thought-provoking podcast from Haptic R&D Consulting. It's called Haptic Horizons.
Okay, I've heard of them.
Yeah, and also some newsletters from, get this, the European Court of Auditors.
Interesting. The Court of Auditors, what do they have to do with sustainability?
Right. Turns out they're not just bean counters. They're actually super involved in this whole green revolution thing.
Huh. That is fascinating. It's interesting because their reports actually show that a big chunk of EU funds, I think it was like a significant percentage, are going towards green initiatives these days. Like, it's a pretty clear sign that they're serious about this transformation. But to really understand this shift, I think we need to go back in time a bit.
Yeah, back to the beginning.
Yeah, like, how did Europe even become so reliant on diesel in the first place?
Right, exactly. Because diesel wasn't always the villain, was it? So what made it so popular initially? I mean, I remember when diesel cars were all the rage.
Yeah, well, back then, diesel was seen as, like, the fuel-efficient, eco-friendly option. I mean, think about it. Diesel engines were supposed to be, what, 20% more fuel-efficient than gasoline?
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah. So it directly impacted consumer wallets, obviously. Plus, governments were offering all sorts of incentives like tax breaks, policies that made diesel seem like the no-brainer choice.
It's true. It really was the smart choice back then.
Yeah. So all this created this market where diesel-powered vehicles were everywhere. It was like the norm, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's almost like diesel had like a whole PR team working overtime.
Yeah, right. Like a whole marketing campaign.
Totally. But then the narrative changed. The Haptic podcast kept mentioning this phrase, diesel deceptions. That's when things started to unravel, right? Like that's when the cracks began to show.
Exactly. The reality is that diesel's environmental impact turned out to be way worse than anyone expected.
Really? Worse than they thought.
Yeah. Especially when you look at things like air quality, those really harmful particulates.
Right.
And remember those economic benefits we talked about, the fuel efficiency and all that? Well, they kind of got overshadowed by the healthcare costs that came along with all the respiratory illnesses linked to, all that bad air quality.
Wow. Talk about a 180. So diesel went from hero to zero.
Pretty much.
It's like, I don't know, the energy world's version of a Hollywood plot twist.
Yeah.
Okay, but this whole disillusionment with diesel, that's just part of the story. What were the things that really drove this move towards emissions-free solutions? Like, what were the forces behind it all?
Well, it was kind of a perfect storm of factors that all came together at the right time. I mean, the Haptic podcast, they highlight the European Green Deal as a major, major catalyst.
Right.
Launched back in 2019, this ambitious roadmap for Europe to become completely climate neutral by 2050. And it's sweeping. Think changes across energy, transportation, agriculture, everything. It's pushing for these huge emissions reductions.
That is huge. Climate neutral by 2050.
Yeah, huge. It's incentivizing investments in all things clean tech.
Right. So it's like this top-down approach. But it's not just a policy push, is it? Because the Haptic podcast, they also mentioned market pressures, right? Are consumers actually demanding cleaner options?
Oh, absolutely. Consumer demand is really powerful these days. People are way more aware of the environmental and health impacts of their choices.
Right. So they're not just passively accepting whatever's offered.
Nope. They're actively seeking out cleaner alternatives. I mean, look at electric vehicles, right? Their popularity has just exploded.
Yeah, they're everywhere now.
Yeah, and it's thanks to things like advancements in battery technology, lower running costs, and that charging infrastructure that just keeps growing and growing.
Right, all those charging stations popping up everywhere.
Exactly. It's making it so much easier to make the switch. So yeah, it's a combination of regulations pushing and consumers pulling for change. Kind of a two-pronged approach.
I love that, a push and a pull. Okay, but now this brings us to the fun part, right? The solutions themselves. Electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cells, renewable energy integration. I mean, the Haptic podcast made it sound like Europe is on the verge of a clean tech revolution.
Oh, it really is. This is an exciting time for innovation, for sure. It's not just about replacing old diesel engines. It's about completely transforming how we generate and use energy. Like, think about it. Integrating renewable energy sources like solar and wind, that's essential for powering those sleek electric vehicles and all the other cool, clean technologies. It's all connected.
Okay, this all sounds amazing, really incredible. But how is this playing out on the ground, in the real world? What's the impact on businesses? Because haptics seem to suggest that companies are actually finding opportunities in this whole shift. I'm really curious about that. Like, how are startups actually profiting from this shift? Did Haptic mention any, surprising examples in their research?
Oh, yeah. This transformation is definitely creating this whole new playing field for businesses. We're seeing these traditional automotive giants, the big car companies, they're pivoting to electric vehicle production.
Oh, so they're not just sticking with the old ways.
No, they're adapting. And then you have energy providers, they're pouring resources into building up renewable infrastructure.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about staying ahead of the curve. And then, of course, there's the startups, right? They're emerging with all these ingenious solutions in areas like battery technology, charging infrastructure, even things like smart grids.
Smart grid.
Yeah, they're these super sophisticated energy management systems. And one example that Haptic actually highlighted was this startup. They're developing software that optimizes energy use in buildings.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they're seeing incredible growth as more and more companies are trying to reduce their carbon footprint. It's like everyone's kind of scrambling to adapt and find their place in this new landscape.
Right, it's like the gold rush of clean tech.
Yeah,
But for businesses that are just starting to wrap their heads around this, it must feel overwhelming. Like, where do they even begin? I mean, this is where Haptic R&D Consulting comes in, right?
exactly. That's where their expertise really comes into play. They kind of act as guides, helping companies assess their current operations, figure out where they can improve, and then develop those strategic roadmaps for integrating new technologies and even like new business models. It's like a total overhaul.
So it's like a business makeover for the sustainable age.
Yeah, you could say that.
And this technology transfer thing they talked about, I have to admit, I'm not totally clear on how that works in practice.
Oh, yeah, it can sound a little jargony, I guess.
Yeah.
But think of it like this, like a chef taking a recipe from a cookbook and turning it into this amazing meal, right?
Okay, I like that analogy.
So technology transfer is about taking these cutting-edge research discoveries, innovations, and turning them into practical, market-ready solutions.
So it's bridging that gap between the lab and the real world. Got it. It seems like Haptic is really uniquely positioned to help companies navigate this whole transition from, diesel to all these sustainable alternatives, especially with their strategic road mapping services. What I'm really curious about, though,
How's
is
that?
what does the future hold for sustainable businesses in Europe? Like, where are we headed? What's next?
That's the big question, right? Well, I think the future looks, well, incredibly bright for businesses that, embrace sustainability and innovation. The shift to emissions-free solutions, it's going to totally reshape key industries like transportation, logistics, energy, like all the big ones.
It does sound like a pretty major overhaul of how we do things now. But is it realistic to think that Europe can really achieve these goals? I mean, they are pretty ambitious, right? What are the biggest roadblocks they might run into?
You're right, the challenges are definitely there, and they are substantial. I mean, scaling up the production of all these clean technologies, that's a big one. And then ensuring a stable and affordable supply of renewable energy.
Yeah, keeping the lights on.
Exactly. And then we have to think about it, adapting all the existing infrastructure. I mean, we're talking about a massive undertaking here. Those are just a few of the hurdles.
Right, those sound pretty big already.
They are, but there's also another layer, this question of ensuring a just and equitable transition. We can't leave anyone behind in this rush toward a greener economy.
That's a really good point. What do you mean by that? Who's at risk of being left behind?
Well, think about all the workers in industries that are tied to diesel, right? Like automotive manufacturing, fuel production, all of that. This transition away from diesel, it could really impact their livelihoods.
Oh, right, if those jobs disappear.
Exactly. So we need to invest in retraining, reskilling programs to help equip them with the skills they'll need for the new jobs that are being created. And then, we also have to be mindful of potential energy poverty.
Energy poverty.
Yeah. I mean, if the cost of these clean energy solutions, if they're not managed carefully, those who are already struggling to make ends meet, they might face even bigger challenges just accessing affordable, reliable energy.
So it's about making sure that this transition benefits everyone, not just those who can, afford the latest and greatest tech.
Exactly. Sustainability can't just be about fancy new technology.
Yeah.
It has to be about social equity as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so social equity, making sure we're bringing everyone along.
Right. But then, on top of all that, we also have to be aware of the potential for, well, geopolitical tensions. As countries start competing for resources and market share in this, like, clean technology sector, things could get a little messy.
Oh, right. Like, if everyone's suddenly trying to get their hands on those rare earth minerals that are needed for, EV batteries, right, that could definitely lead to conflict.
Exactly. It really underscores how important international collaboration and cooperation are going to be just to ensure a stable, sustainable supply chain for these clean technologies.
Right. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past where competition for resources caused so many problems.
Yeah, we've got to learn from history. So it's like, yeah, we're kind of entering this new era of global competition, but instead of oil, the prize is dominance in renewable energy and clean tech. It's a whole new game.
A new game with higher stakes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also a chance for countries to work together,
Right.
to solve this challenge that affects everyone. Climate change, this transition, this whole move to an emissions-free economy, it could actually spark some, unprecedented levels of global cooperation and innovation.
It's like a forcing function for everyone to work together.
Yeah, kind of. So we've got this mix of challenges and opportunities. It's a bit of a tightrope walk, isn't it?
It is, but I have to say, I'm feeling optimistic.
Me too. Me too. I mean,
Yeah.
I believe that human ingenuity, our capacity for collaboration, it's much greater than the obstacles we face.
I like that.
Yeah, I think the key is to approach this transition with a sense of urgency, a commitment to fairness, and a real willingness to work together, like to be open to new ideas and solutions.
That's a good point. It can't be business as usual. We have to be willing to change.
Exactly. I mean, while there are definitely hurdles, the Court of Auditors, they also highlighted some pretty fascinating success stories in their reports. Like, for example, they found that cities that invested early in electric bus fleets, they're already seeing big reductions in emissions and operating costs.
Oh, wow. So it's actually working in some places.
Yeah, I mean, it's early days, but the results are encouraging.
That's really encouraging, actually. It sounds like there's definitely reason to be hopeful, even with all the challenges. I'm curious, though, what are some of the more unexpected or maybe groundbreaking developments that you're seeing emerge in the world of emissions-free solutions? Like, what's really catching your attention?
That's a good question. One area that I find super exciting is, well, this convergence of artificial intelligence and clean technology.
Oh, wow. AI.
Yeah, AI is already being used to optimize energy grids, manage traffic flow, to reduce congestion, even in the design of, like, more efficient solar panels.
Wait, AI designed solar panels? That sounds pretty futuristic.
It is, and it's happening now. Researchers are using AI algorithms to analyze, like, huge amounts of data, stuff like weather patterns, building orientations, to create these hyper-efficient solar panel designs.
Hmm.
Imagine a solar panel that's not just a rectangle, but it's molded to the unique contours of your roof to capture the most sunlight possible.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. That's the kind of innovation that AI is enabling.
So it's like AI is helping us squeeze every last drop of energy out of the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just one example. AI is also being used to create these smarter, more responsive energy grids. These grids, they can seamlessly integrate renewable energy sources, and they can manage these fluctuations in supply and demand, making sure that clean energy is available, whenever and wherever it's needed.
Wow. So it's like AI is the conductor of this whole clean energy orchestra.
Yeah, kind of. It's really incredible.
It does sound like technology is stepping up in a big way, helping us solve some of these really complex problems. What else is out there? What else is on the horizon?
Another area with a ton of potential is this development of circular economy models for clean technologies.
Circular economy. I've heard that term, but I'm not sure I totally understand it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a buzzword these days.
It is.
But it's a really important concept. So think of it this way. Imagine a system where, like those old EV batteries, they're not just trash when they're done, right? They're actually feedstock for new energy storage solutions. That's the circular economy in action. It's about shifting away from that traditional linear model of, take, make, dispose.
Right, that old school way of thinking.
Yeah, it's outdated.
Hmm.
We need to close the loop by reusing, repairing, recycling materials. Instead of constantly having to extract new virgin materials, we're designing products with their end of life in mind, ensuring that their components can be recovered and repurposed.
So it's about creating a more sustainable life cycle for products, especially complex ones like those batteries and solar panels.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of the materials used in clean technologies, they're finite, and they can be really hard to extract and recycle. So a circular economy approach, it's essential to minimize waste, reduce our reliance on those virgin materials, and make sure that those valuable resources, they stay in circulation for as long as possible.
So it's like those materials, they're not ending up in a landfill somewhere. They're being reintegrated back into the production process. It's a closed loop.
Yes, exactly. And the cool thing is, this isn't just limited to clean technologies, right? Circular economy principles, they can be applied across industries.
Hmm.
It could fundamentally change how we design, manufacture, and dispose of, well, pretty much everything. It's about decoupling economic growth from resource depletion.
Wow, that's a big idea. So it's starting to feel like this transition to an emissions-free economy. It's not just about swapping out one technology for another. It's more like a complete transformation of our systems and even our mindsets.
I think you're absolutely right. It's a systemic shift, and it's going to require a lot of things: innovation, collaboration, and a willingness to really rethink how we do things.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly inspired by all of this. This deep dive has been really eye-opening, and I'm excited to see how all of this unfolds.
Me too. It's a really exciting time to be alive, that's for sure. It's a time of huge change, and it's full of opportunity. I'm optimistic about what the future holds.
It really feels like we're at this tipping point, like we're on the verge of something big. And for those who are willing to, jump in and embrace this change, the possibilities seem endless.
I totally agree. And this isn't just about, trying to fix the damage we've done. It's about creating a future that's more resilient, more efficient, and, yeah, ultimately more prosperous for everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, this exploration of Europe's journey toward an emissions-free future, what's the one thing, the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember? If they only remember one thing, what should it be?
The main thing to remember is that the era of diesel, it's fading. It's on its way out. And it's being replaced by this new wave of sustainable, emissions-free technologies. So businesses, if they want to succeed in this new world, they need to be proactive. They need to embrace innovation. They need to actively seek out those solutions. This transition, I know it can feel daunting, like a huge change, but it's also packed with opportunities for growth, increased efficiency, and this chance to make a real difference.
That's a really powerful message. It's not just about keeping up, it's about being a leader in this new era.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those who hesitate, those who wait too long, they risk getting left behind. The European Court of Auditors, in their analysis, they found that companies that actually integrated sustainability into their core business strategies early on, they're already ahead of the game. They're outperforming their competitors.
So there's a real competitive advantage to being sustainable.
Oh, yeah. They're attracting the best talent. They're securing investment. They're building stronger brands. It's good for business all around.
It's a good reminder that sustainability isn't just about doing the right thing, ethically. It's also smart business. And for our listeners out there, here's something to think about, a final thought. If Europe, with its long history of relying on diesel, if they can successfully navigate this shift to a cleaner future, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Like, could this be a catalyst for a global shift? Could we see a move toward a truly sustainable way of life on a global scale?
That's a big question, a really important one. Europe's journey, it's like this beacon showing everyone that this kind of transformation is not just a pipe dream, it's actually possible. The lessons they're learning, the innovations they're developing, they could be a blueprint for the rest of the world.
It's a powerful reminder that change is possible, and it's happening right now, all around us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Europe's quest for a sustainable future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.